So I'm just going to delete this convert for now and take a look. Come up here to the geometry spreadsheet, go to the primitives, and you can see we've got this path attribute that we can use to split this up. Okay, so we've got all different materials there. You can see concrete, drywall, glass there. Okay, so we can use all of them. So come here. So this is taking a while. I'm going to maybe set it to bounding box so we don't need to visualize it, right? And then just drop a split there. And then up here, we just need to give the name of the attribute, which is path. So add path, and then a condition, right? Which is look for the name, which was glass. So glass with anything before or after. Put that to this side, okay? And this is on the primitives. So if we set this to wireframe now, can see there we've just got the windows. Okay, so there if we name this split glass, and then maybe here let me just do let's say Houdini scale. Okay, so I'll just alt click and drag on that, set this back to wireframe, sorry, not wireframe, bounding box. Okay, come up here, do invert selection, so we're just getting all, because it's still trying to split this glass, right? We could do concrete. I'm just looking at, it's lowercase, so set that to concrete like that, and then again do concrete. Okay, and then drag that down. Do invert selection again. So here we got, I can see metal, drywall. Okay, and there's some more metal. So let's do the metal. So if we, let me see, I'll grab the that plaster, well, they call it gypsum here, drywall gypsum, plaster, I would call it. So we'll say gypsum. Okay, and then that will, I think, the rest of that. So then we've got the gypsum coming out here, so it's showing me all the metal. Let me just invert it. So yeah, that's all the gypsum there. Invert that, and I think the rest is all metal, right? Window frame, painted metal, metal, metal. I'm just looking here, you can see it's metal. There might be one or two bits of wood, but steel. That's a screw. I don't think we'll be simulating that anyway. Screws, yeah, okay. What are these? These brushed metal, okay. So turn that invert selection off, and here we'll say gypsum and metal. Okay, so we get gypsum from one side and metal from the other. Okay, so I'm going to start with the concrete. So in terms of the simulation, especially when you're splitting up a simulation into separate components, which is useful for, in this case, really is more for just to be able to do it. So if you've got, super beefy computer with lots of RAM, you could just try to simulate everything together. But to have more control and just to be able to run simulations quickly, I'm going to run the concrete simulation first, and then the metal simulation based on the concrete one, and then the glass based on the concrete and the metal one, and the gypsum. I'm not sure if we'll actually do the gypsum. It's not necessary. It's like it would be an extra layer on top again. I think we'll just do the metal, concrete, and glass. So yeah, we'll start with the heaviest components, which would be the concrete. Okay, so I'll take the concrete, and we need to unpack it now. And we'll grab that path attribute. Okay, and let's see what we have. There's the concrete. So this part is fairly light. Let me go into smooth wire shaded as well, so we can see the kind of subdivision that we've got. I want to kind of get in close to see you know, the points. You know, when you do that, if we go to D, go to View, and then I go to Neither and just drop this down to something lower. Try that. Okay, when I zoom in close now, you can see we've got these edge loops here, which are great for if you're going to be subdividing this, you know, as a static model, but we're going to be fracturing this up, which means, you know, we wouldn't be able to subdivide it in that case anyway. So in this case, I'm not going to bother because we've only got 80,000 points here, you know, whereas I think the metal has, you know, there's like 1 million, I think, there. So we'll need to do some. Yeah, you can see how long that's taking. If I unpack that, okay, so yeah, we've got 3 million points there. So we'll definitely need to do some cleanup on the metal before we simulate that. But on the concrete, you know, this really isn't too much of a problem. So yeah, we've unpacked it. Let me just delete that. Let me save this while we're going. Control S, by the way, on the keyboard to save, or just go File, Save. Let's drop a connectivity sort. Okay, and this will create, so this will look at, you know, all the separate pieces of geometry. So I'm going to set this on the primitive that will generate our class attribute that we can visualize like that. So all of these are, you know, separate pieces of geometry, right? They've got their own individual points and vertices. There's a bit of an overlap there, but not much. So we can see what we're working with. You know, all of these are separate pieces. Another good thing to do at this early stage is just drop a solver. Okay, just make sure we have a ground plane, plug that in, press visualize that, just to get a, you know, I like to get a simulation going as early as possible, just to see what's going on, if anything weird is going on, right? I'm just going to set a camera here, control click on camera there, maybe that's just bring it in a bit closer, something, yeah, like that is fine. Okay, and then just run a flipbook. There we go. So not the most exciting flipbook. So you can see nothing happened really, just these kind of pillars in the middle, they collapse. But that's kind of a good sign, really. It means that the model is built really well, and, you know, it's kind of constructed properly. So let's go, I don't know why I went out there. Go back in here. Let's delete that. I'm going to drop a measure so that we can split out, I think, these blocks. Okay, so drop a measure there, do this. I'm going to measure the area per piece on the primitives, and you can see this using that class attribute, so measuring each of those pieces and telling me the total surface area. And then if we drop a split, okay, and then I'm going to do small pieces. Okay, and then so if we take a look at the results of that, so one thing you can do is make a visualizer. Just click on the area there. You can see, you know, it's nicely divided. We've got all these pieces which are pretty much the same, and then these blue pieces which are smaller, and then we can have a look at the actual value on the primitives going. So we got what, about 4,000 down to about 10,000. So we can pretty much guess, you know, those little columns will be 11,000, and the rest, those big parts, 70,000 or 70. So if we split this, so at area, bigger than 20. You'll notice I like to use these splits quite a lot. They, you know, it's all it is a delete and delete non-selected on the inside, delete non-selected, and a delete. Just something you do often anyway. Just, you know, you want something on one side, something on the other. Often with this kind of stuff as well, you can just use groups. Like, you know, the next operation I do, I can just use this as a group, but I just find it visually tidier if I know, okay, this stuff is going this way, this stuff is going this way, for me now and also for anybody picking up this scene. So if we just drop a null to have a look at what we've got. So we got the big pieces there, and then all of those columns, I think, yeah, just on the other side there. So next we'll take a look at fracturing these big bits of concrete.